Were India's negotiators in the Rafale deal misled by their own government when it came to key commercial issues in the contract? Were two major objections to the deal overruled and considered resolved on the basis of something which never actually happened? Well, these are the questions which have arisen out of an admission by the government in the Supreme Court and an investigation by the Quint, which has discovered a document from the Defence Ministry talking about these objections. Now, as we know, India is purchasing 36 aircraft from Dassault, and this is part of an intergovernmental agreement with France, which was supposed to include a sovereign guarantee from France that in the event the delivery didn't happen, the French government would take responsibility and ensure that we got all the aircraft, or perhaps at least got some form of compensation. Instead, all we have is a letter of comfort, clarified the Attorney General in the Supreme Court, where it was conducting its own hearing into the procedure being followed for the Rafale deal and whether it was correct. Now, what are the two objections which we found out? Now, the Quint has accessed a Defence Ministry document which refers to a number of issues and objections raised by members of the Indian negotiating team. Now, the Indian negotiating team is required to be there under the DPP 2013 and DPP 2016 to look into the commercial aspects of the deal. They have to look into pricing, they have to look into whether there are performance guarantees, and so on. Now, the Indian negotiating team was comprised of 7 members. 3 of these, Rajiv Verma, A.R. Sule and MP Singh, raised around 10 objections to the deal, of which 2 are particularly interesting. The first one says that they were not sure how the deal was supposed to progress because we weren't getting any bank guarantees. Now, when you normally have any sort of commercial contract, whoever is promising to deliver some goods or services gets their obligations guaranteed by a bank, which says, okay, you know what, if they fail to do this, we will pay you the amount of the contract to ensure that the buyer basically doesn't lose anything. In this case, Dassault was not giving these guarantees, and the French government, despite 6 months of negotiations, did not agree to ensure that such bank or performance guarantees were given. When this was escalated by these 3 members, they escalated to the Defence Acquisition Council and then to the Cabinet Committee on Security, which told them, you know what, this is an issue, but the French government is giving us a sovereign guarantee, and so that's adequate enough. As a result, this objection was considered to be resolved by the Defence Ministry and it went back to the negotiators. Another key issue which was raised by them was that they looked at Dassault's finances in their financial results, and they said, you know what, these financial results show that this company isn't actually as sound as we think. And so, if Dassault's finances are in trouble, it would make it potentially a big risk that they wouldn't be able to deliver all the aircraft, at the very least in terms of the time frame which was specified, which, as we know, was pretty crucial to the Rafale deal, was to get everything done urgently. So now, when they raised this objection, again they were told, look, France is party to the intergovernmental agreement. As a result, France will ensure that the aircraft that the deliveries are made on time. Now, and are actually made at all. They will ensure responsibility for the deliveries. Now, again, if France was supposed to be taking responsibility for the agreements, it is essential that they provided a sovereign guarantee, because a letter of comfort is not a legally binding obligation. It is merely an assurance given that, you know what, we will do our best to make sure something happens. It wouldn't even necessarily be binding on subsequent French governments, as has been pointed out by a former head of finance at the Ministry of Defence, Sudhanshu Mohanty, in an interview to the Economic Times. The problem is we don't actually have any such guarantee, which means that if Dassault failed to actually deliver the aircraft, we have no recourse whatsoever. We don't have a guarantee which we can use to hold them to account. We don't have a guarantee or any sort of legally binding obligation with which we can hold the French government to account. So what happens now? I mean, when it comes to intergovernmental agreements and defence contracts like this, sovereign guarantees are pretty much par for the course. It's standard practice. The US, for instance, normally ensures that they always have these kind of sovereign guarantees in place. Now, even where there have been, supposedly, according to some defence officials, there have been Indian defence contracts which have not involved a sovereign guarantee. But even they have admitted that in those deals, there has always been either a bank guarantee or some sort of warranty or bond from the manufacturer themselves, which in this case would have been Dassault. But we don't have that either. Despite 6 months of negotiations, even the French government refused to actually ensure that this was there. So you don't have this. You have a company whose finances actually are considered by your own negotiating team to be unsound, and yet you have no way to ensure some sort of delivery or compensation in the event of a failure. That's the situation where we're in right now, and it is absolutely imperative that the Defense Ministry, that the Prime Minister actually, and all the members who are part of the Cabinet Committee on Security explain to us how this decision was arrived at, because it means we are in a position where major objections to this deal, which could have potentially even scuppered it for all we know, were dismissed on this basis, on a basis which never existed. It's a false premise. We need answers, and we need answers now from our government about how this happened. The Quint will, of course, continue to look into this kind of information, keep bringing you these kind of stories to help you know exactly what's important about the news going on around you.